I want to share a great discovery, sadness, confusion, all at once that many people have in the world that we live in today. And I'm saying this Jews and Gentiles alike. And that is the observance of the holiday of Christmas. This is a very, very touchy topic because some Jews and even non-Jews grew up observing Christmas. I mean, for me, it's a very touchy topic because my birthday was always on Christmas, and it, Zat Hashem, always will be. So, do you believe in Christmas gifts? Do you not? Well, I'm thinking in my back of my head, well, it's my birthday. I got to make sure that I get one at the same time. But let's really get to the bottom of what's being observed. And if anyone wants to or decides to observe the holiday, I think the least we can do is understand what we are celebrating. Right? Shavuot, we know what we're celebrating. Passover, we know what we're celebrating. We know what we're celebrating on Rosh Hashanah, on Yom Kippur, Sukkot. All of the Jewish holidays, Hanukkah, we know what we're celebrating. We know what we celebrate and what we do. Now, even though we don't know every little detail why we do it, that's why there's the concept of Naaseh v'nishma. First you listen, and then you do. First you do, and then you understand and you listen. However, for the most part, whatever we celebrate, at least celebrate, we know why we're celebrating. So if anyone is going to celebrate Christmas, I think the bare minimum requirement is to understand what you are celebrating, and based on those conclusions, decide if you want to celebrate it or not. I'm not coming out and saying you're allowed to or you're not allowed to. I think we all need to be the judges for ourselves in this matter. Okay, so popular myth has it that Jesus was born on the 25th day of December, today. That's popular myth. I know it's not true, but wait. Popular myth has it, the word out in the street. You ask most people, when's Jesus' birthday? Or anytime anyone asks me, when's your birthday? I tell them the date. Oh, you're a Jesus baby. You're a Christmas baby. Okay? Ironic for a rabbi to be... Okay. But popular myth has it that Jesus was born the 25th of December, 1 AD, or 1 CE, whichever way you want to count the common era. Very good. Jesus was definitely born as a Jew. He was Jewish. He was a Jewish scholar. Now, next. The reality is, what? He was in the Gemara too. Yes, he is mentioned in the Gemara. Yeshu is his Hebrew name. There are censors in the Talmud removing different interactions and teachings from Jesus in our Talmud. It's a big question of who removed that. Was it Jewish scholars or Christian scholars who were able to amend that in our own Talmud? The later is the more accepted opinion, believe it or not. Okay, so a lot of details, so pardon me if I'm peeking down at my notes while I'm saying this, but I think it's very, very important we know this, again, to get in the holiday spirit and to make sure we observe this holiday the great, great way. All right. So that's popular myth. You want to hear the reality? The reality is that the New Testament does not mention anything of the birth of Jesus. Not the day, not the year, nothing at all. Okay? The earliest gospel that writes of them was Mark. Okay? And that was written in around 65 CE. And when he presents and he speaks to us about Jesus, he presents to us an adult Jesus. So, the New Testament, the authentic literature that they learn, does not speak about Jesus' birth at all. Okay? The conclusion we can draw from that his birth is not mentioned in any of their main writings is that it didn't matter to them. They didn't care when he was born or not originally. Early Christianity did not care at all about the birth of Jesus, his day at all. Okay. So why do people, or where did people get the idea that he was born on the 25th, or that he was born in 1 CE? Is that true? Is it not true? So let's first let's understand the day, and then we'll understand the year. First let's do the year and then the day. So, the reason why many think that he was born in 1 CE is because there was a simple mathematical error by a Scythian monk. His name was Dionysius Exes, and he lived between 470 CE to 544. Okay, so this fellow Dionysius Exes was off by 4 years in his mathematical calculation. I'm going to quote to you, there's an individual named Cardinal Fitzmyer. So Fitzmyer wrote a biblical commentary on the Jerome Bible. He is the most influential Christian English speaker, and he writes, and I'm quoting this for you as follows. Though the year of Jesus' birth is not reckoned with certainty, the birth definitely did not occur in AD 1. The Christian year is supposed to have its starting point at the day of Jesus' birth, is based on a miscalculation introduced circa 533 CE by Dionysius Exes. So, to make a long story short, the Christians themselves all know, at least they should know, that the 25th of December is not the day that Jesus was born. Okay, point number 2, and we're going to speak about what day he was, at least it's up for debate also, but what about the year of his birth? So the year of his birth, that was the year, now the date of his birth, The earliest documents that prove the year of his birth is an original church document called De Pascha Competus. Okay, and I'm not so fluent in all of these writings. Baruch Hashem, I spend my time learning Torah and teaching Torah, but I thought that it would be important for us, formal for us to know what the original sources are. Most of what I'm bringing from here is all put together by Rabbi Lawrence Kellerman, if any of you have heard of him. He's absolutely amazing. So, the earliest document, which dates back to 243 CE, is a North African document that says and puts Jesus' birth at March 28th. So not December 25th. The truth is the Catholic Church was not confident with that information, with that conclusion, and therefore Clement, which was the bishop of Alexandria, who died approximately in 215 of the Common Era, he says it was wrong, and his true birthday, and this is the truth based on what they believe nowadays, is that Jesus' birthday was September 11th. What an ironic day, right? So till today, the most authentic belief of when Jesus' birthday was September 11th. Having said that, we all have to know that nobody is celebrating the birthday of Jesus on the 25th, nor the day that he was crucified, because that did not happen on December 25th. What was introduced was a day to commemorate his birth, not his birthday, and that later on in Christian and Catholic observance was put on December 25th, and we'll see why soon. Okay, so what and how did the date of December 25th come to be celebrated? So, this is going back a long time ago. Let's see if I have the exact date over here. I don't. But this was a pagan custom. There was a pagan custom that they celebrated a festival that lasted from December 17th till December 25th. This many do know. It was called Saturnalia. And this was a very weird pagan custom and festival that it originated in Rome. That for 7 days, or 8 days really, the Roman courts would close down and anyone could do whatever they want. You stole something from someone, it was yours. You broke something, you didn't need to pay it back. You killed someone, you were not held up for trial. Anything you did, it was literally chaos for 8 days. At the beginning of this festival, they would name the Lord of the Misrule, which would mean every Roman city would name who the person they're going to save as the last human sacrifice on the 8th day was going to be. Horrible. And then on the 8th day, which was December 25th, is when this person was killed brutally in town square for all to see. And we can think back in those days, who were the Romans not too fond of? Well, the Jews. So many times a Jew was nominated as the Lord of the Misrule. Very sad. Okay? This was a pagan custom. Now we all know that Christianity, and I'll use a Yiddish word, is a big cholent. Why do I say that? Because what's the root of a cholent? The root of a cholent is whatever land our Jewish ancestors lived in, whatever they found available, they threw into a pot before Shabbat, they let it cook, and whatever came out the next morning was their cholent. That's literally what it is. It's a big mixture. So that's why, depending on what parts of the world your family's from, some people do put eggs in there, some people don't. Some people put potatoes, some don't. Beans, yes, no, barley, rice. There's so many things you could and could not put. That all was based on, if you're doing it based on the tradition of your family, based on where they lived and what they were able to literally throw in the cholent. Christianity is the same way. Christianity started, as we know, way after Jesus died. And it was put together, and all they wanted to do was market it and draw people to join on the bandwagon. And, well, when they would approach people, they would say, well, do you want to join this new movement? Well, they say, oh, no, we can't because we have this that we observe. No problem! Bring that in. And so when the Christian people that were, the early on Gospels were instituting Christianity, what they did was they went over to the Roman community, and they invited them to join, and they said, we need to bring our Saturnalia custom with us. They said, no problem. And it was observed, unfortunately, the exact same way. 7 days of uncontrollable drinking, violence, crime, horrible things which were done during those 8 days, and that was adopted by Christianity. However, true Christians back then even did not even accept it. They knew that wasn't theirs. It was a pagan custom, but they accepted it. Okay, so later on, and we're skipping ahead because they were imported in the 4th century. That was 400, around 400 years or 300 something years after Jesus was killed. So in the 4th century is when the Saturnalia was imported into Christianity, and at that point it was more people, many more people that were part of this festival, and this festival targeted, unfortunately, lame, women, homosexuals, black people, there weren't too many of there, and the Jews. Okay? And a lot of pain and sorrow and anguish was put on to these people. They were considered the imperfects, and this was the 8 days of festival that anyone was allowed to do whatever they wanted. And it was a very, very sad time, and I'm just going through over here. In the 1600s, when the original Catholic Christians came to America, they were not accepting anyone to observe Saturnalia or December 25th, because they knew deep down that it was all a big fake. It wasn't really part of their religion, to the point where there was a period of, from 1659 till 1681, that any Christian who observed Christmas in Massachusetts, in Boston, was jailed because they were not really fulfilling what their belief system set out for them to fulfill and to observe. And therefore, I could go on and on about horrible things. In 1466, Pope Paul, for the amusement of his citizens, forced Jews to run naked out in the streets after feeding them a lavish meal, and unfortunately hunted many of them down. In 1881, December 25th again, Christian leaders encouraged the Polish people to set out on pogroms against the Jews. And in Warsaw, there were 12 Jews which were murdered, hundreds wounded, and dozens of women which were raped. All on the 25th. And I'm just giving you a couple of examples, and there are multiple more, but I think you get the idea. The idea is that the December 25th was definitely not a happy day for centuries for the Jewish people. That's one aspect. The second aspect is it's definitely not part of the Christian religion. So let's just go through a couple of the things that are observed in order to celebrate the day and know where they come from. So Christmas trees. Christmas trees is something which is more recent than we would think, and it was when the Christian people went over to I believe it was an Asian cult. They were called the Asherah cult, and they used to worship. They used to worship these trees. That was their form of worship. By the way, we find Asherah as one of the idolatrous trees in our very own Torah. So just so we know. And when they came to them and they said, "Well, do you want to join our religion?" And our religion, many do observe the Christmas. They said, "But what about our tree?" They said, "No problem, bring your tree." So that's how the tree got introduced into the observance of Christmas, because again, they brought in another pagan cult, which this whole story started from, into their religion. And they said, what day should we observe this tree? December 25th. Why not? The way it was originally served and used as idolatry, they used to light candles and decorate it up. It's very similar to what they do nowadays. Mistletoe. Mistletoe, by the way, is a highly poisonous plant, which is a classic Christmas observance to put on top of one's doorpost. The reason for this, how it came in, was a Norse mythology that recounts how a certain god, Balder, was killed with the bow and arrow that has mistletoe at the tip, which poisoned him to death. Later on, this trickled its way down into observing his bravery, his death on Christmas again. I'm leaving some stuff out. Christmas presents, unfortunately, the source of it was imposed by the Roman emperors, forced the Jews at first to bring them gifts on, once a year. Later on, they pieced it together and they said, okay, let's make it December 25th. But back in the day, Roman emperors forced Jews to bring them gifts, and then they again forced not only Jews, others as well. All of that got to a confusion to have them giving gifts to one another and to children. Santa Claus, that's something that we all will be very interested in knowing the source of Santa Claus. Santa Claus we know today is under 100 years old. But listen to how he came about. Nicholas was born in Pereira, Turkey in 270 CE. Okay, that's not that long after Jesus. Later, he's called the Bishop of Myra, and he was just a regular bishop. He was doing what he did. Wasn't a great guy, but 1600 years later is when the church turned him into a saint. So he is Saint Nicholas today, 1600 years after he even passed. Okay? They sainted him and they gave him the day, December 6th, as his day of commemoration. Because, again, just wanting to make everything a cholent, they took his day and they said, okay, maybe the 26th is the day that he was given. Let's just throw it into December 25th. Now, St. Nicholas was not a good person because he was actually one of the editors to the New Testament, and he was one of the people who signed off on it and even added many of the things which were used as a manual and a handbook to the future oppressors of the Jews to come, whether it's Hitler or the Spanish Jews, the Spaniards who oppressed the Jews during the Inquisition, they all referred back to the New Testament saying that the Jews were the ones who killed our God. And that was all thanks, big part of, to Mr. Nicholas, or Saint Nicholas. This image of this very scary individual made a lot of sense. I'm sure we've all seen these caricatures of what Santa Claus really looked like 100 years ago. It was literally this tall, scary individual with a black beard and a black, long fur coat because he lived in Turkey. It was a representation of Saint Nicholas. This then became something which was very scary to children and to people, and they were trying to figure out, why is there an association between St. Nicholas, December 25th? It's 19 days prior. What are we going to do? So finally, and I'm wrapping it up, finally a genius marketing scheme by none other than Coca-Cola. We know that, right? Yes. In 1930s, Coca-Cola took your caricature of Santa Claus. By the way, Claus, that's a very scary word, right? Santa Claus, okay? But either way, there's a whole story behind that also. They took this caricature of Santa Claus, this Turkish scary bishop, and they sent it out to many artists. I forget the artist's name. They sent it out to many artists, and I want you, and the Coca-Cola Association comes to their artists and says, I need to market this in a nice way. The only thing we need is for this Santa Claus to have a red coat and Coca-Cola red coat. So ever since the 1930s, Santa Claus turned into this rosy-cheeked, white-bearded individual, which is literally all a marketing scheme. It's a scheme to get all people, Jews and non-Jews alike, out into stores to buying gifts, buying things you don't need, buying gifts for people who don't really need the gifts, and having a couple days off of work, and all of this to tell us that the evolving of the current day Christmas that we have is literally one big cholent. It's a big mix-up of different pagan customs and non-pagan customs. To end off, I would like you to imagine, before you want to observe or to celebrate such a holiday, I want you to imagine if in 100 years from now, your great-grandchildren are celebrating a day. And it's a random day of the year. Pick any day. Let's go June 1st, for argument's sake. And June 1st would be named as Hitler Day. God forbid. Or Nazi Commemoration Day. June 1st. Horrible, right? And you would see all these weird customs and celebrations and observances being fulfilled by all world, right? Some genius is going to come up with a marketing scheme to get everyone to start buying gifts on June 1st also, okay? And do similar type of observances as we have for Christmas, all commemorating a horrible individual who did horrible things and convinced thousands of horrible people to do the most atrocious things that recent Jewish history has ever seen. But your kids and your grandkids and your great-grandchildren don't know about it, but they're observing it. That is, unfortunately, exactly what Christmas is. Christmas was a day, decade, century to century, millennium to millennium, which was used as a day to persecute, to take advantage of others, but specifically the Jews. So any Jew who feels like they are entitled to celebrating the most mixed up holiday the world has ever seen, maybe we need to rethink it and come to the conclusion that it's really a mixed up holiday with bits and pieces of oppressions and hardships which were administered to our ancestors. And can you imagine meeting your ancestor from 1,000 years ago? And here you are tonight, sitting around a tree, exchanging gifts all wrapped in green and red, and I don't know, having your stockings up on I don't know all their traditions, and doing all these things, and that person looking at you and saying, "Are you serious? Do you know how much Jewish blood was spilled on this day for no good reason, just because we were Jews, and you're celebrating it?" Now, it's funny that it always coincides with Hanukkah, because unfortunately, even in our own religion and our own observances and celebrations, there are, Gentile customs which sometimes trickle down into the modern way that people do observe certain of our customs. Now, gifts on Hanukkah was never a real thing. Okay? Where does Hanukkah geld come from? So, Hanukkah geld nowadays just comes from, wanting to give a gift to your children, to your grandchildren. It's a nice thing. I'm not even saying we should stop it. However, the originality of Hanukkah gelds and dreidels was little kids faking to gamble with each other when they were sitting down and learning Torah. They would be learning Torah, and then quickly when Greeks would come by, they'd close their books, they'd pull out coins, and they'd start playing dreidel. That's where Hanukkah geld comes from. Okay, our other observances of donuts and latkes, well, yeah, since the miracle was about oil, so we put oil in everything. So we dunk ourselves in oil for 8 days. But giving gifts on Hanukkah is not something which is rooted in the original observance. It's not, obviously, it's not a mitzvah. Could it be used as an opportunity to give your children something or give your grandchildren something? Could be. I'm not saying yes. I'm not saying it shouldn't be. Some do, some don't. It depends how we grew up. I'm not saying you need to barge into your house and say, no Hanukkah gifts. Maybe keep them, but make sure you know why you're doing it. Make sure you're giving it as a gift because it's Hanukkah, not because it's the season of giving. Because the season of giving, the way we know it, really originated from the season of literally giving the end to someone's life. And those people were unfortunately our ancestors. So just to wrap up tonight's class, we first spoke about Joseph and the dreams that we had. Then we spoke about the connection between Hanukkah and this week's Torah portion, and Joseph specifically. And then we spoke about a great misconception of the observance of the holiday season, that again, I'm not coming and saying, yes allowed, not allowed. I'm saying, make the decision for yourself. Use the analogy of, in 100 years from now, if God forbid, there'd be a Hitler Day, Hitler Commemoration Day, a Nazi Day. If you would like to see, or how you would react to see your great-grandchildren, your great-great-grandchildren indulging and getting drunk on such a holiday, and getting out and getting all together and being happy on that day. I'll end off with one last thing. There were archaeologists who were looking for the 7 cows that Paro thought of in Egypt, to see if it really took place or not, to see if the Torah is for real or not. They're looking and they're looking and they're looking, and guess what they found? Absolutely nothing, because it was only a dream. Happy Hanukkah.